Time waits and spares no one. Eras replace each other. People are being in. Born technologies break down. Dynamic changes are especially noticeable. Changes began to occur in all spheres of life at the end of the 20th century. Significant metamorphoses were also recorded in space exploration. Missions became more daring, and probes from primitive became more advanced and intelligent. However, this does not save them from inevitable death. In this video, we will talk about the Unity rover. Next, about Pantheon. We will remember what the device was famous for, the possibilities it used, and what it saw on the red planet before its death. Subscribe. Let's start with a brief background, and then. Unity is one of the twin devices sent to Mars as part of the Mars Express rover mission. At first, it was called EM and Gorby, and its brother, which ended up on the opposite side of the planet EM, and later probes were renamed Friday and Spirit, respectively. The latter was much less fortunate. It worked for about 5 years and died, stuck in the Martian soil with broken wheels. Solar panels, thickly scattered with dust, did not allow it to survive the deadly Martian winter. In 2009, no one could have guessed that Unity would suffer a similar fate again. But 9 years later. Be that as it may, Gorby also became the record holder for staying on Mars, knocking the previous champion, AMS Viking 1, off the pedestal. Want to learn about the amazing discoveries of NASA's most persistent probe? Then read on. After the device's death in 2018, the agency actually published a map showing the 45-kilometer distance that the Rebel had covered. Initially, the device was planned to stay on Mars for about 90.92 Earth days, but the mission dragged on for almost 5,500 days. The probe's task was to prove to the world that Mars was once full of rivers and seas. This was pushed aside almost immediately. The first photo that the probe pleased with was the crater panorama and where it landed successfully. The 22-meter funnel was named exactly that way because in golf slang, this word means an accurate hit in the hole. So where did Unity end up again? Further research showed that it landed right on the bottom of the ancient Martian Ocean. The very first photo indicates this. If you look closely, you can see layers and deposits of presumably unwashed water and weathering. Evidence of the presence of water in the Martian past is also the discovery of a parasite of a mineral that the probe found by drilling into the rock. This is also evidenced by strange voids in the rocks found by the device. But the most significant in terms of discovering evidence of the red planet's watery past is hepatitis, or blueberry, as scientists have called this mineral in terrestrial nature. Round balls up to 7 millimeters in diameter are formed in geysers, and the fact that Flesch found them on Mars says a lot and stinks. Hepatitis and other findings clearly hint at the place of the huge Meridian Plateau, which includes the Eagle Crater, previously splashed a reservoir of significant size. Do you want to continue the Martian voyage? Please. When the technology reached the nuanced crater, impact 130-meter funnels, it was decided to lower the probe to its bottom. Even the risk that the device would not get out did not stop the mission developers. But the fears turned out to be in vain. Everything went well. First, Unity photographed the crater with a panoramic camera and then spent 6 months exploring the funnel, finding more and more evidence that Mars had been much friendlier long ago. The probe's journey continued with enviable dimensionality, but suddenly, while examining the heat shield that had come off during landing, Unity again discovered something. Near the screen lay a real meteorite, the first one found on another planet. They called it the shell drag hit. After the landmark find, monotonous and filled digging in Martian soils and sending the results to Earth began. And to fix it and even manage to get stuck in 30-centimeter sand dunes at home, getting it out of trouble would have been a piece of cake. But not on Mars. The probe was unsuccessfully skidding for 38 months, unable to move from its place. While the engineers were controlling it from the ground, do you think that the mission ended there? No way! When Unity finally got out of the trap, it headed straight for the crater. Rebus is how the probe saw it. In this funnel, the device worked with such zeal that it began to have problems with the manipulator. In the end, it was decided to leave the arm open to avoid the spell. Here, the probe got caught in a 3-day field storm, but gradually the wind blew the sand off the panels, and the device was able to move on. What can be said about the Unity mission? It was extremely fruitful. Not only did the probe find signs of water on the planet, it also sent a huge number of photographs of the surface of Mars. Now we know much more about the appearance of our dusty neighbor. For example, here is Victoria Crater, which the militia visited after the Airbus. The image clearly shows the dunes located on its bottom. Here, the probe recorded clouds bringing to Mars, after which the planet plunged into darkness for a whole month. And a thick curtain of sandstorm, rising from the surface, barely allowed the rover to maintain the necessary functions. And again, the mission was in danger of failure. But this was only a training exercise. The worst was yet to come. And finally, Endeavour Crater loomed before the cameras of the long-suffering Unity. A huge funnel 22 kilometers in diameter. The work continued. The probe studied the winds of Mars as if on purpose, raging in earnest, and they moved stones, managed to find a gypsum vein, and through its eyes, Earthlings saw the Hayward Grills. The passage of Phobos against the background of the solar disk and the Mother Hill first discovered by the rover in the summer of 2013. Unity drove up to Mount Bandar, where it was going to spend its 6th winter on Mars. The awakened apparatus partially studied the Marathon Valley and the Sievers Valley of unknown origin. And that's all the probe managed to do, because B210818M Mars was covered by a storm of planetary scale. A hurricane the size of North America worsened the planet with a field trail for many months, blocking 99% of sunlight. This storm was the beginning of the end of the legendary rover. But what was the last thing it saw? NASA published a farewell photo of the rover. This is the western end of the Endeavour Crater, which Unity had been driving around for several years, simultaneously studying nearby locations. Attempts to revive the rover were unsuccessful. The device fell silent forever. 7 months later, NASA specialists, having unsuccessfully given the probe its last command, announced the official closure of the program. And the patent spent 15 years on Mars and brought in valuable benefits to science. Let's look at the probe that has settled on the planet forever and will destroy it. Over the years of the mission, many perceived the rover as something native. So after the death of the Apathy, not only scientists were upset, but also people who followed the movements of the device on the distant celestial body. But preparations for a mission to Mars continue, and perhaps soon people will walk on the surface of the red planet. Human vision is a poor assistant in studying distant worlds. That is why Earth inventors have been creating telescopes and spyglasses for centuries, whose school children, disdaining enormous distances, helped us penetrate the depths of the universe. Over time, scientific progress made it possible to send devices equipped with cameras to the surfaces of the planets of the solar system. Thanks to them, we were able to see with our own eyes mysterious craters, unexplored valleys, harsh cliffs, and other details of alien landscapes. Mars is a favorite in the research question. It has received the most visitors from Earth. What did they see on the deserted, gloomy, but so attractive planet? Here is a unique collage of Martian images, taken from the catalogs of various missions that have ever visited. This is a rocky celestial body. Let's start with tectonic structures. This image was compiled from dozens of images taken by the Curiosity camera. Who took it in 1930? The first salt in January 2018. Mount Sharp stands in the center of Gale Crater, which is 96 miles, 154 kilometers in diameter. Want to take a closer look at Mars on a microscopic scale? Here you go. This photo shows the Martian wall, layers of rock that include tiny crystal-shaped bumps, as well as mineral veins with bright and dark material. And in this case, how to isolate what you're looking for using the standard tools offered by the probe's scientific payload. The image demonstrates how using special filters available on Match TV and the Curiosity rover's Mars camera can help reveal the presence of certain minerals in target rocks. The image is a composite of images taken through 3 filters, chosen to make the iron oxide mineral hepatitis stand out as an exaggerated purple. Here's the Curiosity rover conducting a test on October 17, 2017, as part of the team's development of a new way to use the rover's seeder. This image shows the drill touching the ground, while evaluating measurements with a sensor on the robotic arm. This image by Vera Robin with the chemistry instrument in the camera on the rover shows sediment layers, mineral veins, and the effects of wind erosion. The landscapes of Mars are an inexhaustible subject for the camera of Earth probes. For example, here is a view of the Vera Robin Ridge from below on Sol 1734. This place was designated for the Curiosity rover even before the device landed in 2012. Here's another view of the Vera Rubin Ridge on Mars's Mount Sharp. The structure sits just above the reddish rocks of the May Formation. This image shows a dark mound, called a butte or area, that rises about 16 feet above the layers of exposed red material that cover the slopes of Mount Sharp. Here's a map showing the rover's route to its network, and from where it landed in August 2012 to where it is in July 2017. Sol 1750, and the planned route to additional geologic layers of Mount Sharp. Think Mars doesn't have cons like Earth's? You're wrong, take a look. Nathan Bridges, a dune on Mars Mons. It was one of the research stops for the active Mars Dune survey. Nathan Bridges 66, 2017 helped lead this mission. And another panorama from an active linear dune in Gale Crater. Here are the textures that the Curiosity rover used to study the Martian dune. This image shows 2 Ramey scales. The red planet has its own unique vortexes. Field devils dance in a sequence of images taken on February 12, 2010. A field devil walks near a Martian sand dune. Admire Martian dust. The Devil in Gale Crater, Sol 1597. This pair of images shows the effects of a single Martian day. This one shows a sandy wind blowing under the rover, and this one takes us back to Mars's ancient past. This grid of small polygons on the surface of the Martian rock on the right edge may have been caused by cracks, drying out or more than 3 billion years ago. And here's another interesting shot. In the foreground, purple-hued rocks are visible near the rover's location. Late 2016 on Mount Sharp. Would you like to see some nickel iron? A meteorite struck by the rover's laser? October 30th, 2016. It is worth noting that the dark stone with a smooth surface was meticulously examined using laser pulses and confirmed to be nickel iron. Meteorite. This is a trash S60-degree panorama of the rover on Mars. This is what our gloomy neighbor looks like. This self-portrait of the rover shows the vehicle at a drilling site in the Murray Bass area of Mount Sharp. And this image captures the moment of truth. The graph shows the locations where the rover collected its first 18 rock and soil samples for analysis by lab instruments. MJ hits the ground and bam, on Mars. The hilltops in this scene are Match TV, and the cameras are about 5 meters above the rover and 25 meters southeast of it. Want to see images from the Farewell to Murray Bass series? Here they are. This photo shows an outcrop of a hill with Islamist stones in the area of Peace and Bam on Mount Sharp. Having looked at all the proposed photos, a person who has not visited Mars will be able to roughly imagine what kind of landscapes await colonists who risk settling on the red planet. Not a very hospitable landscape, is it? And not very encouraging. One consolation is that perhaps 1,000 years will pass, and we will be able to disband our dusty neighbor, turning it into a clone of Earth. So before this happens, hurry to enjoy the authentic Martian landscapes of longevity, the crystal dream of the representatives of the human race. Along with the still unattainable immortality, it confidently leads the ranking of desires. Not everyone wants to stay in this world for centuries. The philosophy of some people is similar to the worldview of the brilliant Ostap. Remember the sacramental phrase from the Golden Calf: I do not need an eternal needle for the Primus. I do not want to live forever. But nevertheless, the instinct of self-preservation forces most creatures on the planet to passionately desire, if not an endless, then at least a very long life. Why are we unable to realize our dreams, while the inhabitants of past eras did so? What barriers prevent most people from crossing the cherished 100-year Rubicon? Are there examples in history, apart from unproven biblical legends, when the inhabitants of the Earth lived for 1.5 centuries or more? Let's try to answer these and many other questions right now. The most important thing is not to forget about the possibility of risk, because they exist in any endeavor, and we will continue. Compared to the total population of the planet, the number of long livers is insignificant and amounts to dozens. But still, there are many such cases. Who were the famous Exicles? And are there any patterns that show us the secret of their longevity? The first real documented cases were noted in China. Meet the man who lived to be 256 years old. Although there is no one to actually confirm his date of birth, the record holder himself claimed that he was born in 1735, but some historians claim that the date is incorrect. In fact, Li was born in 1677. It is not known who is right, but Mr. Qin died in 1033 and went down in history as the man who lived longer than anyone else. But what if we try to find a connection between the fates of famous long livers? For example, perhaps most elders led a decent life, and having accepted excesses and bad habits, let's say right away such attempts will fail. Take at least Javier Pereira, when representatives of the authorities came to the 140-year-old man with a request to allow the release of a postage stamp with his portrait. The Colombian agreed, but with one condition. At the bottom, he asked to add the phrase, "I drink and smoke," Javier died at 169 years old. His Soviet brother in age, Shirley Muslimov, was also not a teetotaler and did not follow a special diet. But this did not prevent him from crossing the 168-year mark. In fairness, it should be said that some Axicals still adhered to a relatively healthy lifestyle and avoided overeating. And most importantly, they did not get nervous over trifles. The above examples are unofficial. The first case recorded in the Guinness Book of Records was a 122-year-old French woman, Jeanne Calment. And the oldest man in the world is a 120-year-old Japanese teacher. Campaigns for. So, longevity is possible. What prevents everyone from stepping over the century boundaries? Let's look into physiology. Although running ahead, we will say that it is not of primary importance in this matter. Aging is a gradual fading of the functions of a living organism. While we are young, damage that appears at the cellular level is practically unnoticeable, but over time it accumulates. Then a critical breakdown of the mechanism occurs, and its work ceases forever. The difference between organic life and constructed machines is that our molecules are capable of regeneration themselves. Unfortunately, over time, too many problems accumulate, and it is no longer possible to solve them with the body's standard means. What is the essence of withering and how to stop it? Biologists are greatly indebted to humanity, since they still do not understand the reason why seemingly decent organs fail so quickly. Scientists have collectively agreed to consider this as normal wear and tear, and are convincing society that birth and death are inevitably offered in one set. On the one hand, there is a certain logic to this. Why do we need death? That's right, to optimize evolutionary development and implement the slogan, "Young people are welcome everywhere." Biologists believe that death is programmed into the human genome, and they even came up with the term swineherd for this. As usual, rodents are given as an example. You can put them in ideal conditions, prevent and treat any diseases, but the individuals will still die after the time marked by nature. Is there really no person or animal that could learn to bypass the deadly program? There are exceptions, though few. One creature on Earth is completely devoid of the aging gene and lives several times longer than a representative of its species should. This refers to the legendary naked Earth rodent. The supposed one dies after 2 or 3 years, but individuals live to be 35. At the same time, the lands retain their childish features to the end and are completely insensitive to pain, even to sulfuric acid burns. And what about people? Examples of long livers prove that a person can, if not defeat death, then significantly delay it. There is another purely psychological nuance that we promised to tell you about at the beginning of the video. It cannot be discounted, discussing the issue of prolonging human life. Our subconscious is a complex mechanism capable of not only entertaining, but also stimulating the body to longevity. You will say nonsense. A person lives as long as his physical condition allows. And you will be right, but only partly. In the subconscious of each person, from childhood, society lays down a certain program, a kind of stereotype describing the acceptable time frame of the life cycle. Social norms have been established indicating that after 60 years, citizens enter a period of survival. The phrase sounds monstrous, but people are creatures, extremely inspiring them. And such statements are inevitably postponed in the distant corners of the mind, so that when the opportunity arises, they will show you the door perfectly. How to stop the mechanism of self-destruction imposed by society? The task of a person who knows this is to stay in the saddle as long as possible. Move, lead an active lifestyle, pump yourself up intellectually, conduct socially significant activities, etc. If you ignore this advice with the onset of retirement age to settle in a rocking chair, then you risk instantly falling out of the clip, acquiring a bouquet of various ailments, and a 3-year-old successfully completing the GOAT program. By the way, the only similar aspect in the biographies of the previously named long livers is the following. They worked until their last days. Qin Yun successfully treated earable swords, Yanin Muslimov tended sheep, and Zombie taught children. Moreover, his teaching experience was more than a century. It has been proven that if a pensioner chooses a passive lifestyle, then without integrity to exist does not bring a person to the grave before any disease. It turns out that the secret of longevity is continuous development. Only in this case you break the imposed algorithms. Up to 18 years of college, up to 25 years of work, up to 35 years of family and children, up to 60 grandchildren. And what next? It turns out that on the road of life, there are no speed modes of 80, 90, 100. If you choose not vegetative, but conscious existence, then over time the regeneration mode of the body is guaranteed to start and renew it at the cellular level. Accordingly, it will extend the years of a person's full life. Therefore, break the system. Do not follow the matrix. Discard these unnecessary standards. Do not ignore the upgrade of the brain center, and many years of an exciting earthly path await you. By the way, in terms of intellectual development, the Hubble channel will be happy to help. Do not spare likes and live on the bell so as not to miss the main thing. In the meantime, we are really looking forward to your like so that we can confidently begin creating the next issue. After all, your comments and likes are facts that confirm that our work is not in vain.